Hi, welcome to Arts Warehouse. My name is Grace Gdanek, and I'm here with Cheryl Maeder and Lisa Reindorf, and we are going to be talking about their artwork, climate change, art as activism, and a few other things that are happening in Delray Beach as part of RISE Climate and Art Weekend. I'm really excited to have you both here, so thanks for joining, and we have Lisa on Zoom from Boston, right?
Correct.
Awesome.
I'm here in Boston.
Beautiful trees in the background. So I'm just going to share a little bit about their biography information, and then we'll get into a presentation with your work and we can talk about it after. Lisa received a Bachelor of Art in Design of the Environment from the University of Pennsylvania and received a Master of Architecture from Columbia University. Lisa was also an instructor at RISD. She has been a guest speaker at environmental conferences on how artists confront climate change and environmental issues, discussing topics such as climate change depicted in art, artists and climate change activism, and sustainable art in the time of climate change. Cheryl Maeder is a fine art photographer and video installation artist. The core of her work has always been about connection, the innate connection to the self, each other, and to all other forms on this planet. She studied photography at the Zurich University of the Arts. After 8 years in Switzerland, she returned to the US and opened her photography studio in San Francisco, where she photographed international advertising and fashion campaigns. Her work was the inspiration for the Dove campaign on Real Beauty, Real Women, which transformed the way women are viewed in the global media today. In 2005, Maeder relocated her studio to Miami and deeply immersed herself into fine art photography and video installations. Her work is in many permanent collections, including some in Miami, and you're in traveling public art group exhibition, and involved in a lot of things with climate change and the environment. So those are kind of the basic backgrounds of why I wanted to bring these two visual artists together to talk today, and just a little bit more about the event that's going on this October, the first weekend in October. 1st through 4th is RISE Climate and Art Weekend, and it's a Delray Beach Office of Sustainability sponsored event that was inaugural last year. It was really wonderful, lots of art exhibitions, talks, city officials get involved, so just kind of bringing that awareness. Especially important to Delray Beach, which is a coastal city. We're just a few blocks away from the ocean here, even at Arts Warehouse. So I think it's a really great initiative that Delray Beach has started. We were involved last year, and both of your works were featured in Title, which was our exhibition in the gallery. It was a wonderful show. Due to some changes this year, COVID restrictions, we have adapted, and so that's why we're entering this virtual realm here. So really excited to have you both, and that's my long-winded spiel, but anyway. So we're going to get started with the presentation, going through their work so we can give everyone a background on what their work is like. So Louis, if you'll switch over there. And everybody's going to get a chance to speak. We'll have the conversation after as well. So we'll first be going through Cheryl's works, and I'll leave it over to Cheryl.
Hi, everyone. So my first series, actually this current series that I'm doing now, I started during the pandemic. It began in March. And I started the series called the Supernatural series. And there are going to be photographs, and also I'm now currently working on the film for it. So I just want to read an artist statement from the series. In the Supernatural series, I want to evoke a mysterious lyrical world through the interplay of color and light. Fusing the natural world with my inner world, I create visuals that are somewhere between reality and the sublime. I create the photographs for the Supernatural series and the film entirely on location, working with the elements of wind and natural light. The fog of color is created in each setting on location. As the color lifts and fades away, I am reminded of the impermanence of life. So here's the Supernatural series. And then if we continue to the next, and then the next. And I also began filming as well by the sea, and I'm currently working on that as well now. So my next series is Submerge. And this series I did large-scale photographs and also a video installation, which were both in the title exhibition here at Arts Warehouse. And the Submerge video installation was also a public art installation in the city of West Palm Beach under the Bridgeway, and it became part of the natural environment. So the Submerge series explores the relationship we human beings have with the environment, both in the personal and the universal context. We are not separate from the earth. The human body contains 70% of water fluids, and the ocean waters cover more than 70% of the earth itself. Water represents our connectedness to the earth and to each other. And then also, for the next one, I have The World Upside Down. And this series is about reflections. In this paradoxical world, our planet seems to be turned upside down. The bubble is symbolic of lightness and the freedom to lift the human spirit. It is a time to reflect on who we really are as human beings. In widening our vision to a higher perspective, all beings and life forms on this planet are reflections of the universe. So in this series, Darker, I wanted to show the power and the beauty of the ocean. And it's my love of water and the sea that I created this photography series. And then here we have The Voyage, and I also did large-scale photographs that are limited editions, and also a video installation. And The Voyage is a metaphorical exploration paralleling the importance of life in all its forms. The Voyage is about the existence of magic and enchantment that surrounds us, the connectedness of all life forms. Humans are not separate from nature and other beings in the environment. We are nature, and that's part of this series here. And finally, I have my Far Away series. And what I wanted to convey in this series, I want to convey the infinite expanse of the sand, sea, and sky, and how we humans are a part of this narrative, but not the main focus, as sometimes we tend to think we are. And so now we have here my video installation frequency, and I'd just like to play that for you. So just for the artist statement for frequency, frequency communicates through nonverbal language the vastness of the infinite universe. It takes us on a psychological journey questioning whether our universe is just one or many coexisting parallels. Over a period of 5 months, I researched and filmed reflections on a lake surface. Every day that I filmed the lake surface, it took on a different pattern, from sunny to overcast to rain, from calm to turbulent.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so, Lisa, we're going to continue on in the presentation with your work, if you'd like to share about yours as well.
Thanks, Grace. And Cheryl, I particularly liked your talk about the magic and enchantment of oceans. That was really wonderful. I'm happy to be speaking with you, even though I'm being beamed in remotely. As Grace mentioned, I'm an artist and an architect, and also an environmental activist. My artwork deals with the topic of climate change, in particular, rising seas and sinking cities. So the cause of rising seas, I'll just give you a brief background, is of course global warming, which warms up the air, the earth, and the bodies of water. This results in melting icebergs and expansion of the oceans, and stronger and more severe storms and ocean surges. So there's the rising sea part. But to compound the problem, we've built architecture and infrastructure along fragile coastal ecosystems, particularly in Florida, where you all are.
And there's a conflict between this built environment
and nature's response. And that is the essence of my paintings. So we'll start with this image, which is an aerial view of Florida. And most of my paintings are map-like with this type of aerial view perspective. And in this painting, you can see geometric roads and buildings that are built along the ocean. And it's very regimented and gridded and geometric. And the infrastructure contrasts with the undulations of the natural patterns, such as the landforms and tidal movements. Now, in this next piece, which is called Rising Seas, this is a very large 6-panel piece. And in this work, oceans surround and inundate a constructed coastal environment. And you can see the ocean's very powerful and sweeping in and overwhelming the city. The next work is called Sinking City. And here, an imagined city is being subsumed by the oceans. And again, you can see that there is a dialectical conflict between the constructed, gridded systems created by man and the natural patterns that nature takes. In the next work, called In the Seas, I'm putting this in just to show you that even though the topic is serious, the topic of ocean rise and global warming and flooding, I want the work to be compelling and beautiful. The color is very bold because I grew up in Mexico among a community of artists and activists, and I'm drawn to really vibrant colors. So most of my work has been map-like, but now starting actually with a show that I had as part of an exhibit in Delray at the Arts Warehouse called Title, I started shifting to face-on perspectives. And this is an abstracted architectural, probably high-rises, that is being inundated by ocean waves. And I'm going to kind of see where this type of work leads me. To give you a kind of idea about the scale of the work, I'm going to show you a quick video from a recent exhibit that was at Brown University Granoff Center of the Arts. And the exhibit was titled Rising Seas in Sinking Cities. So if you want to cue in the video.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was a great overview, and it actually kind of flows into one of my first questions that I wanted to ask both of you about the medium, photography and video, painting and mixed media. So what was attractive about using this medium to express your messages of environmental themes? And maybe, Lisa, you want to go first. You mentioned color, the vibrancy. And that's one thing when I first found your work last year and we were working on Title, the exhibition together, I realized what I found so interesting about your work was the vibrancy and the color. And it seems just like a beautiful abstract piece, but when you really see the meaning behind it and start to realize that those patterns in the grids are actually perhaps a sense of like impending disaster and those rising seas. So it has multiple levels, but if you want to just touch on why painting or why mixed media there?
First response is because I'm a painter, but I will say that artists have a way of communicating visually, of communicating data and stories and scientific data in a way that sometimes just pure writing or scientific data can't. So video and film and painting is a really powerful medium. And I use it to bring people into the story of climate change, and be able to, so that they'll be able to see some of the causes and effects of climate change and rising seas and building along the coast. And the next step is to kind of think of some solutions, but awareness is the key message at this point.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, obviously you're a photographer, but continuing this message through that work.
Yeah, well, through my photographs and also my video installations, my work is about connection. And it's about connection to the self, each other, and to all life forms on this planet. So when I do my work and how I do my work is basically from the inside out. And so I don't conceptualize on the outside. It's like it all works from the muse on the inside. And since I feel like I'm not separate from the environment and nature, and that's who I think we really are, my work transforms into that in what I'm doing. And, this latest series that I did, since this COVID pandemic, I felt this strong sense to be out in nature, and that's why I started that.
Wonderful. Perfect. And Lisa, you actually kind of just touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to ask, when I was speaking with someone at the local sustainability office here in Delray Beach, getting ready for this Rise weekend, they said, in order to spread the information about climate change, new and different avenues need to be explored. And art is a way to reach a different audience, which is what kind of ignited this cause for having this whole weekend. And, whether it is an artist talk or conversation like we're having, perhaps it's somebody from the city doing a demonstration. So there's many avenues. But how do you hope that art can continue to be used to share those messages of climate change?
So this is what, for me, this is what I feel, that art connects through not just talk and concepts. Art connects through a heart connection, an emotional connection with people. And that's why I feel like in civilizations, what lives behind is art and design. And that's what I think art is so very important to connect with people emotionally.
I agree. Any other comments on that, Lisa?
I'm going to say that people really want to live on the coast. So the issue of conflict of living on the coast and building there and sea rise is not going to go away. We need to make people aware of it, but there are a lot of solutions and there's a lot of ways to get involved in climate change. So I'm going to suggest that people become active, whether it's politically active or just reading about the issues, reading about environment, and maybe joining some groups. There's just so many of them out there, like Thinking About Water, Citizens Climate Lobby, or even starting with your local aquarium. Most aquariums have great programs on oceans and climate change, and you can get kids involved in it. Start early.
Start young. Yes, definitely. No, great suggestions. And, just speaking on Delray Beach, we're a big and small city at the same time. I feel like it's really easy to get involved with local politics here. And I feel like our commissioners, they want to be involved. So it's just a matter of maybe taking that extra step to see what is happening in the environment. Or, we have a sustainability office and what is it exactly that they do? So great points to start here. And as we've said already, we are a coastal city. And there's a new hotel pretty much on every block around us, high rises, new condos, new homes. Lisa, I think with your background, and I wanted to ask actually that question, design of the environment, what exactly, so that study in college, what exactly did that entail? So if you just want to give us a quick synopsis there, that's just sounds so interesting.
Well, that's going
back a few years, but I think they were kind of a little ahead of their time, but it did have to do with studying landscape design, studying environmental issues, studying architecture, development, and seeing the connection of nature and the built environment. So that message has stayed with me throughout my life.
Yes, definitely. No, very interesting. And I would hope that more people are starting to see the connections between the infrastructure of cities and rising seas, and then, of course, natural disaster happening all over the country, all over the world, but specifically here in this area as well.
You know what else? I think it's really important, like for each of us, to think how we can shift climate change and what works for each of us in our own lives, how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Small steps, but would lead to larger steps. And who can we influence in our immediate life to make small changes? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, a common image seen in your varying bodies of work is the interaction of water with already existing buildings and infrastructure. As a Florida resident living in these coastal areas of South Florida, it's something that we've experienced during natural disasters and heavy storms. Your message seems to touch on the more permanent effects of these tidal changes over time. It's as if the imagery in your work is a warning for citizens, showing a potential disaster or permanent change. Aside from restructuring coastal cities completely, how do you think citizens can help who are becoming more interested in these environmental threats?
That is a very interesting and complex question, but it's interesting you asked that because my next series of works is going to be on potential solutions. As I said, people want to live on the coast, so that you're always going to have that conflict, but there is ways of mitigating the problem. Other countries have done a lot more advanced development in this area, but there are ways such as coastal diversity, beach buildup, drainage, marshlands, things called sand pits, a lot of different ways of forming the land and working with the natural patterns. That's kind of the work more of physical oceanographers and engineers. Citizens can get involved by becoming politically active and educating themselves on the issues.
Wonderful, thank you. Cheryl, when speaking on your work, you shared that the environment and nature has never been considered a separate thing from your own existence. You know, that you were sharing that it's within you. You and nature are connected. We saw in your piece Frequency the representation of this shared existence in the water reflections, or at least that's kind of how I was interpreting it. Why do you think this shared existence between us and nature is an important part of the climate change conversation or the awareness?
I think that if we all realize that we are not separate from nature, that we are nature, we would all take more responsibility for climate change. That's what I feel. And I think, you know, as I mentioned before, I think each one of us has to question what it is for each of us. But I know for me, I began to realize, I watched this incredible Netflix movie called Cowspiracy, where I realized our quest, humans' quest for eating livestock and dairy has taken over this planet and completely affected climate change. So I myself and also my husband stopped eating meat and dairy. And I'm not saying for everyone to do that. For each of us, we have to question what it is.
What can be that step that I can take?
Exactly.
Right. Excellent. So those are all my prepared questions. But I did just think of something else as well. You know, you're just two artists in this climate change, artist activism conversation. There are so many facets to environmental artwork or based artwork, you know, all different. So we're kind of focused in on the tidal and the oceans right now. And Lisa, I know that you've been involved. There's a website, Artists in Climate Change, and forgive me the title incorrectly, but I know there are, you know, several artists that are out there doing, and writers, you know, sharing about this topic through their creative work. How has that been, getting to know other artists involved? And I know you've spoken at other conferences recently, so just any other comments on the world out there of activist artists?
Yeah.
We are more powerful together. And the interesting thing is that the predominance of the artists who are involved in this work are women. Yes, I've been involved in a lot of groups. One I mentioned, Thinking About Water. The other group is Artists in Climate Change and Eco Artists. There's a lot of artists doing really interesting work. And take a look at some of these websites and see what they're doing. We've collaborated, we've talked at environmental conferences, and worked together to kind of get the message out. And citizens need to get involved as well. And they can start by, you know, looking at some of the work and seeing what the message is and seeing where they can participate.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a great point. And I encourage all of our viewers to check out some websites or other initiatives going on with visual artists. I'm sure there's poets, writers, filmmakers. So there's lots to see. And it's sometimes more fun. Well, at least to me, maybe I'm a little biased as a visual artist or somebody in the arts myself. But I tend to learn better and be more involved with visual stuff. So it's really wonderful that there's such an active part of the art world that's talking about climate change. So it's very exciting. I'm so grateful that you both were able to join me today to have this talk about your work, climate change, hopefully encourage people to explore your work even further and other artists that you might be working with. Any final comments or things you'd like to share, things that are coming up? Lisa, anything first?
I would say that since you live in Florida, Florida is kind of the testing ground of a lot of climate change, especially to do with the particular topic that I'm involved in, which is sea rise. So it behooves the citizens to really get involved in the topic and learn more about it and educate themselves, educate their children, and get active politically. This may not be politically a great thing to say, but the governor of Florida, I think, does not even allow the word climate change to be said in state interactions. So people need to maybe change their government, but at least have their local officials be more aware of it, their mayors, their schools, and get involved.
Wonderful. And I think, I can only speak for Delray Beach and what we're so closely involved in. And I think this climate change and art weekend is maybe a great place to start and get those conversations started. Anything final thoughts from you, Cheryl?
Yeah, I just think that I'm so happy to be here and to be a part of this. And I think especially what's going on now in this world, and especially now in California, what we see happening, it's like, and the hurricanes that are here, it's staring us right in the face. And it's such a great time now that you're having this. And I think that it's now imperative that we all look inside ourselves and see how we can shift and transform it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Grace Gadanik. I'm here with Cheryl Maeder and Lisa Reindorf, and we hope you enjoyed this talk with us today. Thank you.